So today I thought I should do this one in English, basically, so that I'm able to explain some of the convictions I've come to, hold lately to basically all of you that know and have interacted with my work lately. Um, that is because I have come to see the importance of, I think, just explaining that everybody gets the understanding of why we are doing the things that we do and the interrelations that exist, between all of us in the different, spaces that we be in, either of, training or learning or even practice. And I had started to do translation work. And translation, basically, in the sense that I wrote my first book in English, and then later I came to reimagine it in Maasai. I don't say particularly that I did a translation into Maasai, but I reimagined the book in Maasai, which obviously means, the bit of translating it. And then later on, I came to also into this dialogue space where I'm doing these monologues, and I began with Maasai, and I have seen the need now to incorporate English also as a language just of communicating and sharing this information in both. But I had begun that out of a necessity of seeing that that it's a necessity that basically must be implemented, especially by me who has at least seen the need of it, and because I came to think that we are actually in a crisis. And let me just explain by expounding a little bit on what Walter Rodney once said, and that is, though colonialism had lasted for a relatively short period in terms of comparison with how long basically empires take before they collapse, which is about a period of 70 years for colonialism in Africa generally. Um, its impact is still felt largely today, and that is in terms of what we talk about as colonial legacies and as the colonial trauma that we experience today, and that is a reality that everybody must understand. So now, language, for one thing, is was greatly a tool of of the process of colonization, because what we're experiencing today is a sort of a delineation of and peripheralization of the African languages from the most important spaces of life today, and the most important parts of life today, whether in governance, in policy, in legislation, and everything, and even simply and basically as at the point of instruction or education generally. So that African languages today have been reduced to them just being languages of explaining African wisdom. We just have it today in proverbs, and every other thing, but not in the whole process. And you will see this basically because the period we're heading into in Kenya right now is the campaign periods, and we'll start seeing politicians coming around, campaigning in the villages using um, mother tongues, but then they'll go back to parliament and to their offices and do governance and policy making and legislation, using English, and that is basically a language that not many of us do understand, or rather, our people. That is a language which our people basically are not in the full understanding of it. Now, I need to point out again, and this comes from what I've observed lately in my because I've been I think really thinking about these issues now for long, and in the dialogue space I see it's something that is really going on when I look at the work that Mordecai Ogada is doing, the likes of Mbaria Wambaria, the whatever those intellectuals are doing. And I came to see that with the Maasai, which is basically the people I represent from a nationality here in Kenya, is that we are a really central, a people or category, if I may say, on the whole, subject of, research basically, or, the process of even neo-colonialism and everything, and colonialism even before. Right now, because especially the issue of land is a heavy one and a very important one. So we talk about the 1904 and the 1911, treaties sort of that were signed, or the Maasai were co-opted into, which resulted into a huge land loss for our people. And today we are again in the process of colonialism. And I was explaining in one previous monologue here that I did in Maasai that what we are facing today is that the these imperial nations, it's only that they cannot take the gun today and shoot at people in order to kill them and take their land, because obviously every other thing, this issue of human rights and everything, obviously questions them and puts them on account. But though that is happening still in smaller degrees, because look at Ngorongoro, that is what is happening today. The Tanzanian government, with the help of these imperial groups, because what does it mean that when a site becomes, or when a place becomes a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it is being used now as a tool for grabbing land, and forcing out the natives, evicting them, people who've coexisted with the wildlife all along, just because that is now, a tourist whatever site and everything, and suddenly people now have started being less important than animals, and we need to preserve animal spaces rather than human spaces. Yet all along these people have been coexisting with the wildlife, because so basically that's it. We've been at the very very center of it, but now they cannot no longer use the guns so much as it was before, and right now they must see new tools of doing all of these heinous things that they are doing today, all of these injustices that they are perpetrating even today. And that is now the point of neo-colonialism, and the continuity of these imperialist ideas, forcefully taking away land, and capitalism taking away land from the people and ensuring that it is only with a few entities. So they now have to devise new methods that they have to use, and that is why we are having today, obviously that is one, these world heritage things, and the need for conservation and everything, setting aside land for animals and everything, carbon credits, we need to set apart land for those uses and everything. So now, when you come to the point of involvement of the people and of the society, which is what they term these days as communities, which basically is just a few people who are taken sample from this larger community, and now they are being co-opted and used as a representation of the whole, which is not, because they are corrupted. So what happens now is that the people who are involved now in this, we have generations here now. For example, we have the Gen Zs, and then we have our parents, let's say the Gen X. And um, the Gen Zs are revolting against these things. They are simply, acting, they are disobeying in a civil manner, civil disobedience, if we may say. So um, they are saying that we cannot agree with these things, this one we don't agree, this is our land and everything. But then the issue that we face here is the people again who eventually make up these decisions are our parents, because you see the Gen Zs do not have their names, majority of them, attached to a title deed or something. So it's obviously the signature of the older generation that is needed. But then the point of conflict here is understanding of what is happening here, because now there is no way you can come and force these parents and everything, and these older people in society, in community, to sign these deals, and they don't understand anything. So number one, the language here is a thing. Odekayo Gada was saying some time back that they would write agreements in English, in difficult, and very heavy law and everything there, but then um, it is not even translated to these local languages. So how then do you understand that? These people, even they don't even have their, they don't have even the normal signatures. So they're using their thumbprints to do all of that. So language has been really a tool in this. And then secondly is that even the whole of this discussion, it is not happening in a manner that really they understand. So the point of languages and coloniality here is that our African languages sort of are not allowed to discuss, to debate, to analyze, to criticize, these world, order things, these programs, and everything. We are simply not allowed to, have these debates or discourses in Maasai that you hear. Like now, there is a full interview that is, televised, that is happening in Maasai or anything. That even for a country that is predominantly occupied by Maasai people. So these are the issues that are looking into myself, bring me to the point of saying that there must now be a shift here where we bring all of this information. We must bring these discourses into our languages now. We must bring these discourses into our normal, communication and everything, and our talking and our discussions, everything that revolves around our lives, generally as a people. And now there is a challenge here because um, these things are difficult. What happens when you realize that Maasai language or Ma language has no way of explaining, let's say, historical injustice, of explaining, injustice, or explaining human rights, of explaining protests, of explaining, law, of explaining all of those things that are involved in all of this, bullshit process. So it is a whole thing that exists there. So also when I did write my book, I have explained this, and I think I'll continue to do this. Um, then I realized I'm a writer in Maasai, and I am saying that I am writing, the story of my people, yet in a language they don't understand, because it involves them. So I came to see that, as unethical in the first place. So that is why I took myself to reimagine all of that work in my language in a way that the people understand, in a way that the people, basically relate to these things, so that these issues are there. So that when we are, explaining our reality, we use the language, that we understand best. Not even that not that we don't understand these other languages, but it is because that is who we are, and that is what we must appreciate. So I think more than I can explain here is all of that thing. But basically, we are moving now to a new phase where we need to simply transfer these bodies of knowledge into these modern bodies of knowledge into our languages, so that our languages are also empowered to join, the national discourse, the intellectual, the international discourse that is happening all around the world today. And moreover, is to also generate our own knowledge. There is a knowledge existent among us, the older of our society. They have the history and the everything, they do their own version. I had also importantly said that, when a people are denied their own truth, their historical truth, either from the records or anything, in an act of protest, we must develop our own truth, which we shall use to protest against that injustice and all that has happened for us, historically. And that is what must happen really today. So that is the kind of work that now I think we are moving to, developing our own bodies of knowledge, empowering our languages ourselves, working on them, writing books with it, having these intellectual discourses with them, and basically doing everything with them. And if the world needs them, we can invest as well in these languages, because even talk of the digital discrimination that we're having today. Because tell me, what is it if not discrimination, that some languages are fully you know developed, in terms of technologically and all of these things. Though of course these are Western technology, but I mean all of us are using it, and so we have the right now to claim anything that we want, being the users and some that we generate even ourselves. Why is it that we must always run to do everything in a way that pleases the West and these imperial people and these imperial nations, these capitalist nations, and basically not everything that we need ourselves? So I think that is the kind of shift that we must be aligned to these particular days, that we must now empower ourselves, that we must brace ourselves to do in simply everything, so that even for the generations that are coming, we just don't need them um, to end up having no language of their own identity. Today, we have many people. Today, if you really observe, the older Gen Zs, or even these Gen Alphas and even some millennials, people are really complaining about the bit of the fact that they cannot speak their own languages, and that is a challenge really. But that is a gap that again we must fill. We must join with our parents in that they may have their power and the ability to effect change, and yet they are not doing it. We have all the intellectual know-how, the technical know-how, and everything, and we have the will. Then we must combine ourselves for this kind of work that should happen, because it basically concerns all of us. So I think maybe you may pick what you've picked here, and let nobody say that this is in a way to the rise of African languages continues, or propagates or empowers tribal divisions and everything. I don't think language is just a tool, and you see it will depend on how we choose to use it. If we continue to allow certain classes to dictate on their way that we shall work on these things, then I think we will be missing it big time. But we must understand that first of all, we need to protect and use our languages because that is who we are, that is our heritage. And just as we had received, we must faithfully then entrust also to the generations that come after us, to our children, and basically, adopt that as a way that we shall then, live all of us together. So I do hope that you may be able to pick anything that you may in this little bit of sharing that I do and continually will do. And I'll be trying to incorporate both the languages as I do this, and that we may sort of try to do all of these things in our different spaces, in our different communities, in our different, social circles and everything. Just see that we are continuing the whole of this process together. So, cheers, and let's get to do the work. Thank you.